Warning: this content may be disturbing for viewers under 18 or those sensitive to fear-based content. If you are under 18 or easily frightened, please do not watch. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Some places are supposed to feel safe. You check in, drop your bags, maybe grab a snack from the vending machine down the hall. You tell yourself it's just for one night. Just a bed, a shower, and a door with a deadbolt. Nothing to worry about. But what if the deadbolt wasn't enough? What if the man down the hall didn't work there? What if the person standing over your bed in the pitch dark wasn't a dream? These are real stories, real hotels, real people who walked through those sliding glass lobby doors expecting nothing more than a forgettable overnight stay, and instead walked away with memories they will never, not for a single day of their lives, be able to forget. You're going to want to keep reading, not because you'll enjoy it, but because some part of you already knows the next time you slide that little key card into a hotel room door, you're going to think about every single word of what you're about to read. Don't say, "We didn't warn you." The watcher in the lobby. It was the kind of July heat that makes the inside of any air-conditioned building feel like a gift from God. Sarah was 11 years old that summer, maybe the most aware 11-year-old she'd ever be, in that peculiar way that kids sometimes are when they're stuck in a new place, and there's nothing to do but observe. She and her little brother, Danny, had been dropped onto a lobby couch while their mother handled the check-in at the front desk. The hotel was a mid-sized chain property in the heart of a busy mid-Atlantic city, the kind of place with a waterfall feature near the entrance, and a faint smell of chlorine that drifted in from somewhere deeper in the building. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean, and their mother had always had a good eye for places that felt safe. Sarah sat with her legs dangling off the edge of the couch, one eye on Danny, one eye on the rotating door at the hotel entrance. That's when he came in. He was somewhere in his mid-40s, wearing a collared shirt tucked into khaki pants. Not a business traveler, not a tourist, not quite anything. He was average in the most careful sense of the word. Average height, average build, unremarkable face. The kind of man you'd walk past in a grocery store parking lot and immediately forget about. Describing him in detail would produce 10 different faces. He came through the front door and sat down on the couch directly across from Sarah and Danny. That was odd enough on its own. But what kept Sarah's attention? What sent the first slow crawl of unease up the back of her neck? Was the fact that he didn't go to the front desk. He didn't check his phone. He didn't look up at the digital display board above the elevator bank. He just sat down, leaned slightly forward, and looked at the two of them. Sarah told herself she was being paranoid. She was 11. She'd watched too many scary movies at sleepovers. She was reading too much into a tired man sitting down to rest his feet. But she couldn't shake it. Her mother appeared at her shoulder a moment later, room card in hand, already moving toward the elevator. Sarah grabbed Danny's arm and followed quickly, more quickly than she needed to, casting one glance back over her shoulder. The man was still sitting, still watching. She told herself she'd forget about it, and for most of that afternoon and evening, wandering through her aunt's house a few miles away, eating potato chips off paper plates, half watching a baseball game on a muted TV, she almost did. They got back to the hotel just after 7. The late sun was still painting the tops of the buildings gold, and her mother suggested they make use of the hotel pool before settling in for the night. It was the kind of small, contained pool you find in mid-range hotels, just big enough to actually swim a few laps, surrounded by white plastic lounge chairs and a wall of windows fogged up from the humidity. They changed and were in the water within 15 minutes. And then, not within minutes, Not immediately, but within enough time for Sarah to have almost relaxed completely. The door to the pool area opened. He was wearing jeans. A button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled to the elbows. No towel, no swim trunks. No reason whatsoever to be in a hotel pool area at 7:30 in the evening. He sat down in one of the plastic chairs near the far end and looked at the water. For a moment, nobody moved. The hum of the pool's filtration system filled the silence. Then Sarah noticed her mother had gone completely still beside her, treading water with the mechanical calm of someone trying very hard not to react visibly. Her mother leaned down and spoke quietly, just barely above the sound of the water. "I need you to watch the clock on that wall. If he's still there in 5 minutes, we're getting out. 5 minutes can be a very long time." Sarah counted the seconds for most of it. Danny splashed around near the steps, oblivious. Their mother kept her eyes on the water in front of her, though Sarah could see from the tension in her jaw that every one of those 300 seconds was felt. The man did not leave. They got out without making a scene about it, wrapped their towels around their shoulders and walked back toward the elevator like people who had simply decided they were done swimming. Normal, calm, completely ordinary. In the elevator, Sarah's mother said nothing. In the hallway, she said nothing. It was only after the room door had clicked shut and the deadbolt had been thrown that she let out a long, slow breath and said very quietly, "That man has been following us." They put on pajamas. They ordered pizza from a place around the corner that delivered to the lobby. They rented a movie on the hotel TV, one of those family comedies that nobody was really watching, and sat together on the 2 queen beds with the volume turned up a little higher than necessary. About halfway through the movie, Sarah's mother stood up and said she was going to take a shower. "Don't open the door for anyone," she said, not loudly, just as a fact. The shower came on, and then someone knocked on the door. Sarah sat up. The knock was firm but not aggressive. 2 clean raps, the kind a hotel employee might use. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. "Housekeeping," said a man's voice. Something was wrong. The thought arrived before any logical reason for it did, just the immediate, wordless certainty that something was wrong. Housekeeping didn't come at 9 o'clock at night. Housekeeping didn't knock when the Do Not Disturb light was already on, but they needed extra towels. They'd been meaning to call down for them all evening. Sarah crossed the room and opened the door. He was standing there, the man from the lobby, the man from the pool, still in his khakis and his collared shirt, standing in the fluorescent light of the hotel hallway, with a smile that didn't touch his eyes and one hand raised in a small, deliberate wave. She didn't move. Couldn't move. Her brain seemed to have simply stopped processing forward movement. In its place came a surge of images she didn't ask for. Every bad scenario, every worst case, running through her mind in the 2 seconds she stood there in the doorway. She was 11 years old and completely alone. Then she heard the shower turn off. She didn't say anything. She just stood there as the silence between them stretched out for 3, 4, 5 seconds. And then the man said, pleasantly, conversationally, as if they were old acquaintances, "How was the swim tonight?" The bathroom door opened. Her mother took one look at the doorway, grabbed Sarah by the shoulder, yanked her backward, and slammed the hotel room door so hard the frame rattled. The deadbolt turned, the chain lock clicked, and then her mother was at the hotel phone, fingers steady in a way that her voice was not. She called the front desk. Sarah, standing in the center of the room with her heart slamming against her ribs, wanted to tell her to call 911, wanted to say that this was not a problem for the front desk. This was a problem for people with badges and vehicles and handcuffs. But her mother was already talking, sharp, efficient, controlled, describing the man and the room number, requesting an immediate room change. Through the door, they heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps moving down the hallway in the direction of the elevator. They moved rooms that night. They didn't see the man again. Sarah is 26 years old now. She still checks who's in a hotel lobby before she sits down. She still listens to footsteps in hallways. She still, almost always, orders room service rather than going down to the pool. Some things don't leave you. The sound in the closet. There's a particular kind of fear that childhood installs in you, specific as a fingerprint, irrational as a dream. For Marcus, it was hotel rooms, not darkness in general, not monsters in general, specifically the corners of hotel rooms at night. He couldn't explain it, not even as an adult looking back on it. Something about the way hotel rooms were arranged, the anonymity of them, the knowledge that hundreds of strangers had slept in the same space, the curtains that were never quite thick enough, the bathroom light that always seemed to be on a slightly different setting than you expected. As a kid, he would press himself between his parents in the bed until he was 9 years old. At 10, he graduated to sharing the bed with his older sister. His parents, who tolerated a lot, did not tolerate this specific fear graciously. Eventually, and this is the word Marcus uses, eventually, with the weight of something that took considerable effort, he grew out of it, or appeared to. He was 24. He had a real job, a studio apartment in Charlotte, and a company card that covered business travel. The kind of life where paranoia about hotel corners felt genuinely embarrassing to think about. The assignment took him to a Comfort Suites property outside of Asheville, North Carolina. He checked in on a Tuesday afternoon, rode the elevator to the 3rd floor, swiped his keycard. The room was clean. The Wi-Fi password was written on a card by the lamp, and outside the window was a clear view of a Honda dealership. He had the next morning free before the meeting. So his plan was simple. Order food, watch something on his laptop, take 2 melatonin, sleep 8 hours like a functional human adult. The movie he ended up pulling up was the first Saw film, which he had somehow never seen. He was 30 minutes in when he heard it. A crackling sound. Low, irregular, inconsistent. Once every 60 seconds or so, give or take, coming without question from inside the closet. Marcus paused the movie, listened. There it was again. He told himself. Old building settling, pipe behind the wall, something in the HVAC duct that ran through the closet ceiling. He told himself he was 24 years old, and a crackling noise in a closet was not a reason to spiral. He unpaused the movie. He turned the volume up. He dry swallowed 2 sleeping pills from the little travel pack in his toiletry bag and told himself it would be lights out within the hour. The crackling continued at its exact unhurried pace once every minute, maybe once every 90 seconds, not constant, not aggressive, just present. Present enough. The pills did their job. Marcus fell asleep somewhere around the climax of the movie with the laptop still warm on the bed beside him, the closet door still closed, the room settling quietly in the dark. He doesn't know what time it was when he woke up. What he knows is that there was sound, not crackling. Something heavier, a shifting, rustling sound, cloth against something, movement in the dark. He went from asleep to completely upright in the same second, and then the dark hit him like a wall. The laptop had gone to sleep. The curtains were doing their job. He could not see his own hands. He reached for the bedside lamp and clicked it on. Standing between the foot of the bed and the closet, which was now hanging open, was a person, not a shadow, not a trick of the light, not a fragment of a dream that hadn't fully dissolved. A person. Dressed in black from collar to ankle, a hood pulled over their head, maybe 6'4", broad through the shoulders, completely still for the half-second before they realized the light had come on. Marcus screamed. Not a yell, not a shout, a scream. The full, reflexive, involuntary kind that comes out of people in the moments when the brain completely abandons any attempt at dignified processing. The figure moved fast. Out the door, which Marcus would later realize had been carefully propped rather than allowed to latch, and down the hallway. Gone. The whole thing from a lamp click to empty doorway took maybe 4 seconds. His wallet was not in his bag where he'd left it. His watch, a good one, a graduation gift, was gone from the bedside table. He called the front desk. He filed a police report. He was moved to a different room, which he did not sleep in. In the morning, driving back toward Charlotte with the radio on and the windows down and the mountain air coming through the car, he thought about the crackling noise, the noise that had been there for hours before he fell asleep, the noise he had turned the volume up to avoid hearing. He thought about what had been in that closet, waiting, while he took his sleeping pills and told himself he was being childish. He thought about his old childhood fear, specifically the dark corners of hotel rooms, and he didn't find it so embarrassing anymore. Rosa Tyler was 21, which is old enough to know better and young enough to still make the kinds of decisions that 21-year-olds make. The fight with his father that afternoon had been the worst one yet. Not in volume. His father had been louder before, but in the way it had settled into something harder, something that felt less like an argument and more like the end of something. Tyler had grabbed his phone and his jacket and walked out the front door without a clear plan and driven until the impulse to stop somewhere became stronger than the impulse to keep driving. He ended up at the Quality Comfort Suites, a mid-range property about a half-mile from his parents' house. He paid for one night, not quite $80, which felt like a considerable sum for the privilege of sleeping alone in a building less than a mile from the room he'd grown up in, and took the keycard. It was only 4 in the afternoon, too early for whatever the night was going to be. He found the outdoor pool at the back of the property, behind a chain-link gate with a numeric keypad. He had the code from check-in. He let himself in, pulled a plastic chair into a patch of sun, and sat there for almost 2 hours with his sunglasses on and his phone face down on his knee, thinking about nothing and everything at the same time. The hotel was eerily empty for a Tuesday in May. No kids in the pool, no families on the deck. The landscaping around the perimeter was slightly overgrown, giving the whole space the feeling of something that had been slightly forgotten. He didn't see another guest until he went back inside. His room was 214, midway down the second-floor corridor, neither near the elevator nor near the emergency stairwell. The hallway was quiet. The carpet had the pattern that all hotel carpets seem to share, designed specifically to hide everything and hide it boldly. He put his bag down. He sat on the edge of the bed. He turned on the television, didn't watch it, turned it back off. He called his friend Darnell, got voicemail. He sent a text to his mom that said, "I'm fine. Just needed to cool down," and put the phone face up on the nightstand. Then someone tapped on the door. Not knocked. Tapped. 3 light, precise taps, the kind designed to be just barely audible. Tyler waited for the voice. Housekeeping. That's always what comes next. But nothing came. He looked at the door. He looked at the little glowing yellow light on the electronic panel above the handle that indicated the Do Not Disturb status was active. He said, "Who's there?" Nothing. Then, and this is the part he still describes with a specific kind of disbelief, he heard the door beep. One clean electronic tone, the sound a keycard reader makes when it accepts a card. The door opened, not fast, not dramatically, slowly. The handle turned. The door swung inward, the way a door opens when someone is being careful about it, and the hallway light came in through the crack. Tyler called out, "Hey, not right now, thanks." His voice came out steadier than he felt. A pause. He said it again, louder. The door slammed, not closed, slammed, hard enough that he heard something shift on the desk across the room. Tyler stood up fast and crossed to the door, pulling it open and stepping into the hallway. He looked right. He looked left. The hallway was empty, except there at the far end, turning the corner just as he looked, the lower half of a woman's leg, slacks and a dark shoe. Moving quickly, Tyler ran. He reached the end of the corridor in maybe 10 seconds, turned the corner into the cross hall. Another row of closed doors. 20 of them, maybe more, all identical, all shut. No movement, no sound, no person. He went back to the elevator and down to the lobby. The woman behind the front desk listened to him describe the door opening and his not quite employee and the slamming and the woman's leg at the end of the hallway. She nodded with the specific expression of someone who has heard a version of this before. "That sounds like Rosa," she said. She said she would speak with Rosa about the door. Tyler thanked her and walked to the chain restaurant across the street and ate a meal he can't remember. When he got back to his room, he called his mother. She told him not to come home yet, that his father was still in a bad place. He sat with that for a moment, then told her he was doing fine, just tired. When the call ended, it was barely 8 o'clock and already dark, and he brushed his teeth and turned off the lamp and made himself sleep by force of will. He woke to a voice. Female. Low, close, coming from the left side of the bed. "You have to let them in." Tyler's body was out of the bed before his conscious mind had fully registered what was happening. He sprang upright and looked to his left and saw a woman standing at the edge of the bed, close enough that he could see her face clearly in the ambient light coming from under the bathroom door. She was older, late 60s, maybe older, with gray hair pulled back and an expression that was not angry exactly, but something worse than angry. Something with the fixed quality of a decision already made. She was wearing a lanyard. Tyler opened his mouth and the sound that came out was not words. She reached for him. Her hands were small and her grip was weak, and Tyler was 21 years old. And the moment her fingers touched his throat, he simply grabbed her wrists, stepped sideways, and got to the door. He ran down the corridor in his socks, hit the elevator button, gave up waiting, and took the stairs, and was at the front desk in under 90 seconds. The woman at the counter looked at him and her expression changed immediately. In the conversation that followed, Tyler learned that one of the hotel's master keys, the kind that opened every door in the building, had gone missing. An employee had reported it earlier that day, and the matter had not yet been escalated to management or to the guests currently staying in the hotel. This was, Tyler was informed, something the hotel was legally obligated to disclose to guests. Something had gone wrong in that process. He accepted his full refund. He gave a statement to the 2 officers who arrived within 15 minutes. He answered every question he was asked, and then, around 2 in the morning, he drove home. His father answered the door, saw Tyler's face, and said something close to nothing, which, for Tyler's father, was as close to comfort as it got. He didn't ask what had happened. He just stepped back and held the door open. Tyler has never had to leave the house for the night again. He doesn't think he'd be able to bring himself to. And Rosa, whatever her name actually was, whatever brought her to the edge of his bed in the dark of room 214 in that empty mid-May hotel, he never found out. The police filed their report. The investigation went wherever those investigations go. He just knows that somewhere out there is a woman with a lanyard and a master key and something to say about letting people in. And he hopes, with everything he has, that she never finds out where he lives. The knock you never forget. There are two kinds of alone. There's the alone of a quiet Saturday in your own apartment, coffee going, phone off, the comfortable, familiar weight of your own space around you. And then there's the alone of a hotel room at night, in a city that isn't yours, in a building full of strangers, where the walls are thin and the door is the only thing between you and a hallway you don't know. Kelsey had experienced both. She was 32, a project manager at a logistics firm based in Atlanta, and her job took her to cities she would never have chosen to visit on her own. She had stayed in enough hotels by then to know the rhythms of them, the distant sound of ice machines, the elevator bell at odd hours, the particular compressed silence of early morning in a building full of sleeping strangers. She was comfortable in hotels. She'd been comfortable in hotels for years. She'd stopped being comfortable at some point during the night of March 4th at a mid-range property on the outskirts of Memphis. The day had been fine. A long meeting, a long drive back, a shower, and then the specific luxury of a hotel TV remote and nothing to do until morning. She was asleep by 10:30. The knock came at 1:47 a.m. She saw the clock as she woke. Her eyes found it immediately, the way trained sleepers learn to do. 3 knocks, deliberate, not the rapid, apologetic knock of a confused guest who's gotten the wrong floor. Deliberate. Kelsey lay still for a moment. The knock did not repeat. Then it came again. 2 this time. She got up. She didn't go to the door. She went to the peephole, which is the thing you're supposed to do, the thing everyone says they'll do, and then sometimes doesn't, in the foggy middle-of-the-night logic of an interrupted sleep. She looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. She stood there for a moment, eye to the fisheye lens, watching the corridor's unchanging geometry. Carpet, wall, a slice of ceiling. The corner of the housekeeping cart parked farther down near the supply closet. Nothing moved. Nobody was there. She went back to bed. The knock came a third time at 2:09. 2 knocks again. The same rhythm. Same interval between the two. She did not go to the door. She did not go to the peephole. She pulled the covers to her chin and reached for her phone, and sat there with it unlocked in her hand, watching the door in the dark, listening to the sound of her own breathing. At 2:11, she heard the unmistakable sound of a door down the hall, opening and closing. She called the front desk. The man at the desk was apologetic, professional, and confirmed that no hotel personnel had been dispatched to her floor that night. He offered to send security to walk the hallway. She said yes. Security found nothing. The hallway was empty. The door log on her room showed no attempts at entry. The knock had been only a knock, nothing more. She checked out in the morning 4 hours early. She's never stayed in that hotel again. She's also never entirely shaken the specific, irrational certainty that whoever was standing outside her door at 1:47 a.m., whoever knocked with that particular deliberate rhythm and then waited in the hall until they were gone from the peephole, was very patient. And that patience, more than anything else, is what still unsettles her. You can prepare for aggression. You can process panic. But patience is different. Patience means they're not in a hurry. The 14th floor. James was the kind of person who read hotel reviews the way other people read news, habitually, compulsively, with the specific mix of skepticism and morbid fascination that comes from knowing that the worst stories are usually true. He'd been doing this for years. He knew about hidden cameras in rental properties. He knew about the man in Florida who'd lived in a hotel for 3 months by hiding in the space between the ceiling and the roof access panel. He knew the stories about maids and guests and maintenance workers and the terrible intersections of those categories. He thought, genuinely, that knowing these things made him safer. He was in Chicago for a conference when the elevator on his floor stopped working between 2 and 4 a.m. He didn't know this until 2:30, when he decided to go down to the lobby vending machines. He pressed the button, waited, pressed it again, stood in the hallway for 2 minutes. Then he took the stairs. The stairwell ran down the center of the building, 1 flight per floor, lit with the flat, even light of emergency-grade fluorescence. He was on the 14th floor. He pushed through the door on floor 13 and stopped. Someone was sitting on the stairs between 12 and 13. A man. Jacket on, hood up, sitting on the step with his back against the wall and his knees drawn up. He appeared to be asleep. James stood in the doorway for a moment. The man did not move. James looked at him, at the jacket, at the posture, at the way the hood was pulled down over the face, and felt the full, unambiguous calculus of the situation run through him in about 3 seconds. He turned around, went back through the stairwell door, and took the elevator bank on the other side of the building. He told the front desk. He described the man, the location, the floor. The desk clerk called security. Security checked the stairwell. The man was gone. James went back to his room with his bag of pretzels and his bottle of water and sat on the edge of his bed and thought about what the man in the stairwell had been waiting for. He thought about the 14 floors above him and the 12 floors below him and all the sleeping strangers in between, behind their dead-bolted doors, trusting the building. He didn't sleep again that night. He didn't review the hotel on any app. Some experiences he decided weren't for other people. They were just yours to carry. The room that was already occupied. Nicole was a light sleeper on a good night. On the night she checked into a highway motel outside of Oklahoma City on a solo drive from Texas to Colorado, she was not having a good night. The drive had been longer than expected. There had been construction on 2 separate stretches of I-40, and by the time she pulled off and found a motel with vacancy, it was past midnight and she was running on cold coffee and determination. She paid cash. She got her key, an actual metal key, not a card, which she noted without particular concern. She carried her bag to room 109. She opened the door and turned on the light. The bed was made. The room looked clean. The TV was off. The small desk by the window had a notepad and a pen on it. She dropped her bag and went to the bathroom to brush her teeth. There was a wet towel on the floor. She stopped, looked at it. It was a white hotel towel, bunched and damp, pushed into the corner behind the door. She had been told at the desk that this was a clean room. She had specifically asked, in the way that solo travelers learn to ask, whether the room had been turned over. She stood in the bathroom for a long moment, looking at the towel. She went back to the desk, picked up the room phone, called the front desk. The man who answered wasn't the same man who had checked her in. He put her on hold for 2 minutes. When he came back, he said, "Ma'am, I need you to come down to the front desk." She said, "Why?" He said, "We may have given you a key to the wrong room." Nicole looked at the door to the bathroom. She looked at the main door of the room. She looked at the closet, which she had not opened. She picked up her bag, which she had not fully unpacked. She left. She walked the 60 feet from room 109 to the front office and told them what she'd found. There was a hurried, hushed conversation between two employees. The first man, the one who checked her in, was red-faced and apologetic and said several times that it was a clerical error. The second man said nothing. She demanded to know if the room had been occupied when she checked in. She was told, no, of course not. She was given a different room at no additional charge and a coupon for breakfast. She did not use the coupon. She sat in the new room, 118 on the same row, the same flat stretch of highway noise and parking lot light coming through the curtains, and thought about the wet towel. She thought about how recently it would have to have been used for it to still be damp. She thought about the closet she hadn't opened. She checked out at 5 a.m. and was back on the highway before sunrise. She made it to Colorado fine. She never called the motel. She just never stopped thinking about who had been in room 109 before the door opened and the light came on. There's a version of the hotel story that ends neatly. The man follows you and your kids through the lobby, the pool, the hallway, and the door slams in time. The intruder in your room grabs your wallet and runs instead of doing anything worse. The woman in the slacks and the hotel lanyard has a weak grip and you're 21 and fast. The knock at the door at 2 a.m. stays a knock, nothing more. But the thing about near misses is the distance. You carry them because of how close the other ending was. You carry them because the lock held, or the shower turned off at exactly the right moment. Or you woke up a second earlier than you might have. None of these people walked into those hotels expecting anything to happen. They were just looking for a bed and a door that locked. And so, tonight, when you slide that keycard into the slot and hear the little beep of acceptance, pause. Just for a second. Look at the closet before you lie down. Check the bathroom before you unpack. Put the chain on after the deadbolt. It's almost always nothing. Almost.